What's up, guys? This is Audie Murphy, and tonight we're going to France.
On the 16th of December 1944, a massive artillery barrage caught Allied forces off guard, signaling the start of an unexpected German counteroffensive in the quiet Ardennes forests. Their intention? Split the Allied lines in half and ultimately claim the valuable harbor at Antwerp. Their timing is impeccable. With the cold winds of winter blowing in, our superior air forces have been grounded, and the Germans are taking full advantage of the situation. 2 full panzer divisions hit the weakly defended Lausanne Gap along a 45-mile front, driving deep into Belgium and Luxembourg. Within 24 hours of the Germans unleashing their desperate offensive, the initiative in the battle for Europe completely changed hands. The 5th Panzer Division attacked Bastogne and St. Vith, aiming to capture these strategic road junctions and secure their hold on the region. U.S. forces now scramble to stem the tide of Germans pouring into Allied territory. Though our lines may have bent, our men will not break. The German offensive will be turned back.
So Company Heroes 2 has finally gotten its own interactive campaign map set in Normandy in 1942. This is a very good setting for it, and it harkens back to some of its earlier titles, like Warhammer 40k and Retribution. I had high hopes for this title, and from what I've seen so far, it definitely lives up to them. This is the very first mission, and as you see here, we're going into Elsenborn Ridge, which is way up at the right-hand corner of France. And once we secure this, the game opens up even more.
The German counteroffensive has been swift and deadly. Pouring into the Ardennes, the enemy drove our boys from the twin towns of Roquerat, Krinkelt, all the way back to Elsenborn Ridge. It is here that we've drawn a line in the sand. With poor weather hampering air support, our men are now relying on heavy artillery and grit. They are all that keeps the Germans from pushing further into the Ardennes.
So the biggest thing that you want to make sure that you do in this first mission is complete all the optional objectives and set yourself ahead for the rest of the game. It does get progressively harder over time if you lose troops or fail to complete those optional objectives. So really the more you can do while avoiding losing your men in the process, the better. The more men you lose over the course of the game, the more weakened your divisions become, and it can get very, very difficult if you're not careful towards the end game to beat back some of the harder enemies if your divisions are under strength. And the more guys that you can avoid losing, really the better off you're going to be in the long run. Now we see here that I'm putting some bunkers up. I want to make sure that I protect my flanks because I know that they're going to be coming in from everywhere. This looks like a wide open vantage point, so I want to make sure I go ahead and block that off, put it on high favorable ground so it has clear sight lines, and get those engineers to work. Now back in my base we see I've already pulled out, I have an LT on the way, I've got some NGs coming up, and I have another rifle squad here that I want to go ahead and bring up as well. However, I do want to make sure that I put a bazooka in their hands to make sure that they can deal with any vehicle threats that may emerge. I'm thinking about if I want to build yet another bunker up here, but it looks like that side's already pretty well covered by that one. I do want to make sure that I get my rifles up to the front there and make sure that they do go ahead and grab a bazooka there, because it seems that I've run low on Muni, and unfortunately they didn't pick it up on the first run. So I'm going to go ahead and retreat my NG back there and get him reinforced up, move that AT gun into the center and get it set up along that main road, facing the center and the tree line over there to deal with anything that may emerge. I'm trying to figure out the best facing angle here for my MGs. This sight line is already covered by that bunker, and I'm thinking that's probably going to be enough on that primary approach. So I'm going to go ahead and just get him going on the flank here and cover this ultimate approach on the eastern edge. I'm not really sure what I want to keep doing with my MGs at this point. I'm just trying to keep them mobile and keep them active. I want to try to get some defenses up before the Germans start to show up, but I'm not sure how much time I have left before they start to arrive en masse. Go ahead and get my last build order set up, bring up a medic truck to the front, and try to keep my men alive and as close to full health as possible. Again, any men that you lose is going to make your end game that much more difficult. So keeping your men alive really is one of the most primary objectives of this entire campaign. I'm just going to go ahead and stretch a little bit of barbed wire here across this approach, make sure that Germans can't just swarm in and take this trench out from under me, that they're going to have to take the long way around under fire to be able to do any kind of damage whatsoever, and up along that main primary approach centered on the road, which is going to be covered by my AT gun, as well as hopefully a couple MGs that I can get there in the background. Now we do have this bunker up, so I'm going to go ahead and bring my other engineer up and have him keep putting up road defenses here, maybe a line of barbed wire to connect with that, and probably some tank traps after that's completed. Meanwhile, we do have first contact here with the Germans up along the left center side. It doesn't seem to be too much of a threat at this point. They only have, 3 squads, which are easily and quickly suppressed. My NG there is just chilling under fire, finishing off that barbed wire, and I'll go ahead and bring him back around into better protection. I don't have a lot of guns facing that side, which is unfortunate, so I'm going to want to make sure that I get some additional infantry squads out as soon as possible, or maybe even bring some over from this flank, which seems to be overly well covered, especially once I get this MG in the background here. So yeah, I'll just go ahead and put some tank traps up and make sure that vehicles are going to have a much more difficult time approaching me from that side. I ideally like a couple rows, but just the one I think will do for now. We are going to have some more Germans coming in along the eastern edge here. That MG that I built in that background bunker is paying for itself, as well as that MG facing that position, able to easily suppress those Germans and keep them at max range where my rifles can pick them off very easily. So I am floating quite a bit of manpower here. I want to make sure that I go ahead and get some build orders up. I'm not quite sure what I need at this point, probably some more AT power, so I'll go ahead and bring that captain to the field along with an additional AT gun here to make sure that my flanks are completely protected from armor, and that I'm going to be able to deliver a 1-2 punch to any armor that is able to creep up past my infantry and onto that main approach covered by the AT and what's soon to be a bunker. I think that's going to be my next stage of attack here. As soon as I have a little bit more MPs to get a bunker along that main road, further guarding my ATs, further guarding that main approach, and make really that main approach unassailable until they can start knocking out those bunkers. So we see here we do have some more German contacts here up along that primary approach in the woods facing, and they are going to get easily suppressed once again by that mass of MGs. I'm not going to be in too much trouble here until I start to see some enemy armor with number and degree of MGs that I have on the field here, as well as rifles pointed in that direction. Essentially, the MGs are going to suppress and keep them off my butt, and those rifles are going to deliver the killing blow. Now, we see here that a optional objective has popped up, so I want to go ahead and make sure that I allocate a task force specifically for that. I'm looking at what I have available that's going to be able to fill that task. It looks like I have maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4 if I want to be chancy, squads that I can pull off the main line and reallocate onto that flank to go ahead and push in and try to secure that optional objective at this stage. Meanwhile, I've got some more assault engineers here coming to the field to reinforce that flank further and make sure that they're going to be able to push in there en masse, and hopefully they won't get suppressed or anything, moving as a bulk as they are. That's always real risky. You don't want to move your men as a bulk any more than you have to, and if you do, use one squad to scout to make sure that they don't all get suppressed by an MG, as we see here is occurring to the Germans. They're trying to get their infantry in there and then trying to have them deliver some damage, but they're just getting suppressed and picked off at close to max range. It's not the ideal range for rifles, but they certainly can do the job, especially when the Germans are prone, immobile, and unable to fire back. So I have a total of 5 squads now moving over towards that western optional objective. That should be enough to push off any resistance they may encounter. And we see here that they are running into some resistance right off the bat. It looks like a couple German infantry squads, mostly suited for long-range combat. I have a couple of assault engineers there, so it makes them most suitable for close range. I'm going to move them up and put them in the best fighting position they can to deal the maximum amount of damage they can. Looks like they pushed through quite nicely. I'm going to go ahead and retreat those 2 squads back that took a couple casualties and get them back up to max fighting capacity. Meanwhile, it looks like we run into more Germans here. the bulk of my force is still close range, rifles themselves being close range specialists. So I'm going to go ahead and push right up on them, surround them, and put fire into their backsides at close to point blank range here, and that should mop them up rather effectively. And we see here that was a total squad wipe. So I'm going to go ahead and keep moving those squads forward, keep pushing them forward, keep them off balance. Looks like we have a couple remnants of some squads here, along with 2 fresh squads. I can go ahead and focus fire on that close range specialist they have moving and forcing him to back off and assume some cover there behind. I am going to go ahead and just push up, start focusing fire down on his Volks Grenadiers, which are weaker troops, and they should drop off rather quickly. I am going to be able to finish off this fight here with troops that I do have in theater, but unfortunately I'm going to have to retreat that assault engineer squad, as he is just too low health to continue the fight. I do have another fresh assault engineer squad coming up here to finish the battle, and that is it for the Germans. The battle still does rage along the front line, however, as those Germans are still trying to push across that road in from the woods there. Unfortunately for them, that noise means we are going to have able company support coming in here, which is going to consist of infantry and some light mechanized support. That's going to make our job here a lot easier and make the pursuit of any additional optional objectives that much more easy as well. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the troops that were capturing that objective back to my front, probably have them stop by my HQ first and reinforce there. It seems a little bit safer of a road as things seem to have quieted down here just a little bit. I am going to be looking for that first able company support rolling in here any moment now, and in hindsight here I think I'm just going to go ahead and push my troops, the remaining of my troops, back through up along that main ridge that they came in, which is now secured, and back up towards the front that way. I do have that medic wagon right there waiting for them, which is going to make the job of keeping them alive a lot easier, as I'm able to turn on that medic ability and keep them near full health as long as they're not in combat. So shifting troops back from the front and keeping them alive when they're at low health is going to be an ongoing priority of mine. We see here now that artillery support is ready to get activated, but the quality of metal that you receive is going to be dependent on the number of times that you fire that artillery off. So you want to try to avoid firing it off until you start to get overwhelmed. And as we see here, I'm not having any problem mopping these Germans up whatsoever. So I'm going to go ahead and hold off on that for now. They are getting a little bit cheeky and trying to use smoke to cover their advance here, but I do have a whole lot of bunkers and a whole lot of MGs, so I really can suppress them whatever angle they're coming in from. What I need to be much more wary of is when they start to need pushing with armor. As you see here, I have just the abundance of rifles on the field here who are able to deal with these German grenadiers as they emerge from the smoke pretty efficiently. I have repositioned one of my MGs there to cover that new approach that is not shielded by fog, and as we see there, that's another squad wipe for the Germans. And I'm going to go ahead and use this time to bring some of my troops back and have them get a little bit of health back, try to keep them alive. We see here that a German scout car is rolling and dealt with nearly instantaneously. They are still trying to push in from the flanks a little bit along that ridge line. However, that bunker right there is dealing with them rather effectively and keeping them suppressed. I don't even need any rifles guarding that flank at this stage in the game. I just want to make sure that my primary approach is covered here. You see here that artillery is ready to get called in at any moment. My troops are pretty much back to full health, so I'm going to go ahead and redeploy them to the front. I do need to get some more troops along this line, however, as there just isn't the abundance of rifles that I'd like to see to deal with these German threats as they emerge from that smoke line. I'm waiting for the next optional objective to get uncovered here. As soon as it does, I'm going to want to reallocate a small but effective force and repurpose it for that. I do have a pretty good amount of manpower here, so I'm going to go ahead and build up another bunker right here on the center of the road to give my AT guns even a little bit more cover. Make sure that German infantry pushing in from that smoke line isn't able to overwhelm them and take them down at a moment when I really need them to be firing and operating at top capacity. So these Germans are getting rather suppressed right off the gate here as they try to sweep in. They are penned up behind those tank traps, and they're not going to be able to push up much further with that MG raining down on them. My troops behind the line here, meanwhile, are still getting some health back, which is a very good thing, as, again, any casualties you take are going to stack up later in the game. And if you look at the bar, essentially that is next to the tower symbol on the lower left-hand corner of the screen, just above the mini-map, that is an indicator of your overall company strength. That blue bar is your company strength. The yellow bar above it is going to be your company's veterancy. which enables really just better performance overall from all your troops as you bring them out onto the field, in addition to unlocking some of the greater buffs. Now, we see here that the next optional objective has opened up, so I want to go ahead and repurpose Task Force and get them reallocated towards that objective. It looks like the only really good way to get there is straight ahead, so I'm going to go ahead and just charge them right into the fray. It looks like I have more than enough to deal with these Germans coming from the woods here and try to mop them up, clear a path for the rest of my infantry as they push forward towards that objective. They are, however, all on red cover, as the road is going to offer negative cover for all troops on it, and so I'm going to go ahead and get them off that road as quickly as possible and get them into some better terrain. Those craters there will do the job nicely, but honestly, with this bulk firepower, I don't really need to worry about cover too badly. I just want to make sure that my flamethrowers are doing the job. They are going to be committing the bulk of my damage as I move my troops up further here. Now I'm debating which path I want to take. It looks like this main road is going to have Germans coming down pretty steadily from their HQ and from their controlled sectors, so I'm just going to go ahead and divert my troops off that main road and get them going through the woods here down this cute little path towards that objective that way. It seems like a much safer way to go about it overall. Back at the front here, things seem to have quieted down quite a bit. There is still some Germans coming in from the eastern edge of the map, but it's nothing that they can't deal with, I think, independently at this point, especially with that able company support there lending a hand. Now, over here towards this little township, I have no sight lines, and so obviously I have no idea what I'm walking into here. It looks like there are many positions from which there could be fortified Germans firing down on me. And yeah, as we see here, I walk right into a short-range squad there who's able to deal some burst damage and bring down a couple of my flamethrower entities, which is not a good thing. I am going to, however, leave them there and have them finish off the fight, throwing bursts of flame down on those close-range specialists and getting them to retreat off the map as I push the remainder of my forces. And I'm kind of debating at this point whether or not I want to go ahead and just retreat that flamethrower energy and get them back to a safe place. I don't want to have any squad wipes this early in the campaign. That would be rather disastrous, to be completely honest with you. And so I'm just going to go ahead and keep moving them forward, but at the same time try to keep an eye on that. Ooh, that one NG is getting really low, and we've run into the VIP, taking him down effectively. But the Germans coming in here are threatening that NG squad. I'm going to pop him in house there and try to keep a handle on his life. But those Germans, oh, they won him badly, and they toss a grenade in, and I'm not going to be able to get him out. The house catches flame by the flamethrower pack that goes up in a burst by the shrapnel from that grenade, and that is going to be a total squad wipe. Meanwhile, an MG opens up with a burst and tech catches a couple more of my troops on the retreat. I'm just going to go ahead and get them back to the headquarters and have them try to salvage what they can of their squads at that point. There's no further objectives up there for me to pursue, and no reason for me to leave them hanging around any longer than I absolutely have to. So we see here back at base, I do have a couple squads in that white tank that I had called in, so I'm going to go ahead and push that up to the front and get that on a firing position. I think that is the last of the optional objectives. Unfortunately, that retreat path there, as you see, pushes them right past that scout car. Fortunately, not catching any more troops on the retreat, as losing any more squads at that point would be terrible. I do have another AT gun coming up here, repositioning that to try to get a firing angle on anything that's going to come out of those woods. Really, the big thing is that bunker is blocking a lot of the side angles. It's not really an ideal place for a bunker, in my opinion. I kind of have to maneuver my troops around it a little bit as much as it's helping me. So my troops here that have committed that successful assault now are back in base, and I'm going to be able to bring them back up to full health. As you see here, my weight of MGs and fire from those rifles on the front is just overwhelming the Germans, and they're still not able to get more than an ankle into my territory before they're wiped off the map. You'd think that the remaining Germans at this point would take a hint and fall back, but no, these are some battle-hardened Germans here that we're seeing, and they will continue to throw themselves against the weight of these MGs, trying to make a spearhead, trying to make a breach. We see here on the eastern angle, we do have a little bit of armored support finally showing up for the Germans to try to deal with these MG bunkers and packed infantry, and it looks like they are making a little bit of progress here. But fortunately for me, I do have that light tank there to mop up those infantry and those AT guns to deal with that tank as the tank goes up in a burst of flame, and the remaining Germans now cower behind it. and as you see a half-track rolling in just behind that tank as well, and getting lit up rather quickly. It's not looking good for the Germans here, folks. You see a scout car there on the left side getting plugged by an AT gun and then abandoned. That might be a nice little find for me once this battle shores up a little bit and I can get some peace and quiet. I might just go ahead and pop a rifle squad in there and have him operate from the gunner's seat rather than from the seat of his pants, as it were. And I want to make sure that I pull that back. It still just has a sliver of health, and I will lose that entire squad if that scout car gets whacked. So I'll want to push him back to behind the front, get him in a safe position, and get some NGs on him right away. Some engineers to shore up some of that damage, as that is going to be a heavily damaged scout car that I've taken possession of. The Germans still trying to push up, throwing everything they have into it. A tank in the background there, putting some fire down. I'm trying to get a firing angle with this AT gun on him, but it looks like my second gun is plugging away at him steadily but surely, at least trying to put some fire down and plug him before he can push up any further. The Germans still pushing and committing everything they have into this fray. They are getting dangerously close to my left flank there, and I'm going to go ahead and pull these troops back a little bit and get them into a safer vantage point. I do still have multiple MGs covering that angle, so I'm not really too concerned about them pushing up on me in bulk. There could, however, be a couple of loose squads that slip through, so I want to go ahead and keep that contained as best I can. I am going to go ahead and just push a couple more infantry squads up onto that side to make sure that that flank stays contained, stays well bottled as the Germans continue their assault here. So it looks like my light tank and my scout car are now fully repaired, so I'm going to go ahead and push them both up and get them into more advantageous firing positions to rain down on the Germans better here. It looks like this scout car is just going to be able to, oh no, not quite, be able to fit through that space that I left in between the sandbags and the bunker there. It looks like he's not quite going to be able to get up far enough to put any fire down, but I'm not really too worried about that. This is a defensive fight at this point, and frankly I do not think the Germans have the bulk of manpower here to break this siege, at least not without some mortars or some indirect fire. And so you see here artillery now raining down that I've called in on that pack of Germans just to make sure that they don't do anything crazy with that bulk of manpower that they have just sitting there. Looks like a half-track trying to come and get cheeky, but gets repelled back, and the Germans now are in deep trouble as they really don't have much left on map that can deal with what I have to counter. They are, however, being quite tenacious in the tail end of this fight and refusing bitterly to retreat as they get pinned down there against that tree line, trying to push in, trying to really just do anything they can at this point to break this hardpoint siege. But it's not looking good for them at this point unless they throw some heavy armor into the mix. My MGs are just raining down fire on every angle, and this bottleneck is still well contained at this point. So the timer is still ticking down slowly but surely until Allied reinforcements arrive and helps me clean up the rest of these Germans. Oh, and we hear there that there is going to be no more artillery support forming, so I'm going to need to commit the rest of this fight with the troops that I have on the field and pick off the rest of these Germans myself. That's no more free artillery support. I do still have artillery that is able to get called in that's going to cost me muni, and I do have more than enough muni to call that in at least a couple times. So it looks like I'm in pretty good shape here. That timer is getting dangerously low for the Germans here, and I don't know what else they can really throw at me that's going to be able to break this siege. Oh wow, I see there that my bunker is kind of getting a little bit low, as it looks like armor has been throwing some pot shots down on it, so I want to go ahead and reallocate some engineers and get them on that, repair it, fixing that up to make sure that doesn't drop down. That is really my primary defensive structure at this point, and it has attracted the bulk of German firepower that's been able to take structures down so far. You see here that I have some artillery in the backfield that's putting down fire on these Germans that are pinned against that tree line. I just had so much manpower that I just decided to go ahead and bring one of those in, and he is actually doing a pretty good job there of dealing with those Germans in that tree line. They're nestled behind some cover there and reducing the number of bodies that my rifles actively have to fire at. It looks like they had some armor coming in there that was again repelled very swiftly, and the Germans now are in deep trouble. There's only looks like they do still have a tank maneuvering in the background here, not a tank but a piece of mechanized equipment rather, and just a half track that's not going to be able to do very much and is going to get blown up, looks like just by rifle and MG fire there, as the Germans still struggle to even get a foothold into my territory here. You see there that barbed wire is still intact and is still holding these Germans back pretty effectively. Well, it looks like we do have some smoke coming in from these Germans to try to give them a little bit of cover to work with. But unfortunately, there is no cover there. That is all negative cover, and they need to come across that road right into a hail of gunfire for them to really do anything. And the only thing that's giving them cover at this point is the craters from my artillery that's exploded there. That German armor is going to be, I think, this is the last big push, folks. So we have a German armored tank on the left-hand side that is getting dealt with by those ET guns. You see there the volume of fire just ricocheting off it. Its heavy front armor repelling the vast magnitude of it, and I'm struggling to really do effective damage to such a heavy tank, but it is now crippled. I have rifles throwing sock grenades into it at point-blank range, and pop goes the weasel as the German gunner is ejected from that tank, and it goes up in flames. My artillery, meanwhile, is firing against Germans that are pushing in from that eastern flank that are all spread out along that road in negative cover on that right-hand side, and the volume of fire now is going in that direction, both for my MGs and my rifles there on the ground. Able company soldiers also lending a hand in pinning down the remaining bulk of these Germans and dealing with them. Looks like my tank traps there are actually offering a little bit of green favorable cover for them, but just the volume of fire there you see just stacking off that cover must be terrifying. And one final grenade going down there from the MGs in that bunker, and that is going to be it. You see there another explosion on the right hand side of another piece of German light armor that tried to come in, and that is going to be it, folks. The remaining Germans are now retreating and heading back into the woods from whence they came. P-47s and other close air support vehicles are flying overhead, and it looks like Allied reinforcements are now on the way. That is mission complete. So thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you click those likes and sub buttons. Check out all these other videos that are here for you on this channel. And I'm going to be doing some more shoutcasts with a buddy of mine, Georgie Zukov. We're going to be shoutcasting some more CH2 games all right here, all for you guys. And that's going to be coming up real soon, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, though, check out these awesome videos. Got a lot more awesome COH2 content coming up for you guys, as well as some AI War Fleet Command and some Elder Scrolls Online. We've also been doing some upgrades on the channel overall. We now have a Steam group. Make sure you check that out as well. We're doing curator reviews. We're doing it all, folks, all for you guys, so make sure you stay tuned. Thanks for watching again, and we'll see you next time. So yeah, just click any of these videos, guys, and it'll take you right there, I promise. Any of these videos at all. Just pick one. Anyone. You know, the lead writer of this war of mine commented on my review. You should probably check that out. Yeah. Or my EVE Online Machinima. That one's 4 parts long and growing. You know, the Elder Scrolls looks really amazing in 1080p. Any of these videos, guys. Couldn't be easier. Not making this easy. I can wait. Alright, guys, well, I'll tell you what, you've had lots of chances. Lots of chances to pick something. Whole lot of chances.